Agricultural density or rural density. It is the ratio of agricultural, rural population to cultivated land. Agricultural density considers only agricultural population. Agricultural population density is a more meaningful measure than crude population density for developing countries where agriculture is the dominant economic activity. 3.4.3 Human migration. Definition and types of migration. Permanent migration is used for situations in which the mover has no intention of returning to the place of origin. International migration. The movement when migrants cross an international boundary. Emigrants, out migration. Immigrants, in migration. Seasonal migration. The intention of returning back to their place of origin after a few months or a season. Refugee migration when people move for political reasons, war, ethnic conflicts, etc. Evacuee migration. If movement is caused by natural calamities like earthquake, volcanic eruption, flooding, drought, etc. Resettlement migration. When people are displaced by war, natural calamity, etc., and are moved by government to a new location. Causes of human migration. Many factors affect migration. These include economic, social and ecological. Push and pull factors. Pull factors are those which attract the migrant to a particular destination. For example, good social and welfare services, a pleasant environment and political stability, etc. Push factors are forces which work in the migrant's home area. They impose pressures compel a person to move away. For example, push factors include the impacts of natural disasters, drought, flood, and famine, low wages, poor employment and political instability. 3.4.4 Urbanization. Urbanization refers to the process through which society is transformed from being predominantly rural, in economy, culture and lifestyle, to being predominantly urban. Urbanization is commonly defined as the process by which large numbers of people become permanently concentrated in relatively small areas, forming cities or towns. In Ethiopia, a settlement is designated as urban if the number of inhabitants equals or exceeds 2,000, and if most of them are engaged in non-agricultural activities. Factors that affect urbanization. High rate of natural increase of population. Significant of rural to urban migration. Industrialization. 3.5 Population of Ethiopia. 3.5.1 Population size, distribution and growth rate. The population of Ethiopia was about 12 million toward the beginning of the 20th century, 1900. It had an annual growth rate of 0.2%. DT 346 years. After 1920, the population of Ethiopia started growing very fast, and it took only 60 years to double. Ethiopia conducted its first census in May 1984. The governments have conducted 3 successive population and housing censuses: 1984, 1994 and 2007. The population growth rate increased from 2.9% in 1984-1985 to 3.0% in 1994-1995. Since 1999, the growth rate has decreased at an average rate of about 0.2% per year. The current growth rate is 2.6%. The country's population is projected to grow by 1.9 million annually. Ethiopia, the most populous country in Africa, next to Nigeria. This rapid growth seriously strains socioeconomic development. Spatial distribution of population. The pattern of Ethiopian population distribution is markedly uneven. High population densities in the highlands. Peripheral lowlands of the country very sparsely populated. More than 80% of the population of Ethiopia lived in three regions: Oromia, 36.7%, Amhara, 23.3%, and SNNPR, 20.4%. Crude population density of Ethiopia. 1984, 34 per square kilometer, 1994, 48.3 per kilometer 2, and 2007, 67 per square kilometer. The Snapur Enset growing areas, zones, are the most densely populated: Gedio, 772.6, Kembata and Tembaro, 535.8, and Saitama, 482.5. Very low population densities, below 25 persons per square kilometer, found in the peripheral lowlands of Benishangul Gumuz, Gambela, Afar and Somali regions. Agnuik 5.7, Metekel 10.1, Kemishi 11.5. Uneven distribution of population has been the result of ecological, physical factors and human factors. Physical factors include climate, mainly rainfall and temperature, soil, vegetation and relief, altitude. The human factors primarily consist of historical factors, development of infrastructure, types of economic activities and political factors. In Ethiopia, areas found between 1800 m and 2600 meters are the most densely populated. They are inhabited by about 67% of the total population. 3.5.2 Components of population change in Ethiopia. Fertility in Ethiopia. Ethiopia's total fertility rate is one of the highest in the world. In 1984, TFR was 7.52 per woman. By 1994 it dropped to 6.74, and then to 5.4 in 2010. There is significant fertility variation between urban and rural areas. TFR in urban areas was 6.33, while it was 8.08 in rural areas. In 2010 these rates, respectively, dropped to 4.5 and 7.19. Fertility also varies from region to region. In 1994, Oromia and the SNNPR recorded the highest TFRs, 7.26 and 7.16, respectively. Addis Ababa, Dire Dawa, Harare and Gambela recorded TFRs of less than 4.3. Mortality in Ethiopia. Ethiopia has one of the highest levels of mortality in the world. The main causes of such high mortality are the effects of poverty, low living standards, and poor access to health services. The trend of CDR and IMR in Ethiopia is decreasing. Crude death rate dropped from 20 per 1,000 population in 1970 to 16.4 per 1,000 in 1990 and then to 12 per 1,000 in 2010. The infant mortality rate declined from 153 deaths per 1,000 live births in 1970 to 110 in 1990 and then to 77 in 2010. 3.5.3 Population structure of Ethiopia. Age structure. Ethiopia's population is predominantly young. About 45% of the population is young and economically dependent. Elderly people account for about 3% of the total. Only 52% of the population is economically active. Ethiopia has one of the largest non-productive populations in the world. This is a direct result of the country's high fertility rate. Sex structure. In 2007, Ethiopia had an almost balanced 1-to-1 sex ratio, both in rural and urban areas. The sex ratio for the whole country was 100.8. Male populations exceeded female populations in all regions except in Addis Ababa, Tigray and the SNNPR. 3.5.4 Population policy of Ethiopia. There are two major types of population policy used by different countries in the world. A. Pro-natalist populationist policies. They are designed to encourage population growth. More developed countries adopt pro-natalist population policy programs. Examples: the Netherlands, Kuwait and Israel. B. Anti-natalist policies. They are designed to reduce birth rates. Example: China. Ethi.